My name is Annie Guglia and I'm a professional skateboarder and Olympian. So I would say my passion from skateboarding comes from my brother. So we got a skateboard for Christmas around 2001. So he was skateboarding with his friends, and I think what attracted me to skateboarding is how hard it is, and also the fact that he was always better than me. So it pushed me to just be better and try to catch up with him every time we would skate. So around 2006, I met a group of girls from Montreal called the Skateboarders, and that's when I would say I really got hooked to skateboarding, when I found my community and a group of friends to skate with that had the same goal and same passion. I would say there's two main challenges for me in skateboarding. The first one is skateboarding. Itself, it's so hard, and I think that's what I love about it. But realistically, the biggest challenge in skateboarding that I faced, I would say, was the lack of opportunities and visibility of women skateboarders when I was younger. Now with social media, we have access to a lot of information and stuff like that. So for the first challenge, the way I overcome it is I keep pushing myself every time I skate. For the second one, trying to be as visible as I can throughout my own journey, I think is really big for me. On social media, in traditional medias, trying to carve my own path in skateboarding. And during the pandemic, I started being on TikTok. And I've found this platform to be super interesting as well for a completely different way, because on Instagram you really showcase your skateboarding, but on TikTok it's more your personality. So when I was a teenager, I said there wasn't a lot of opportunities for women in skateboarding, and so I kind of stayed in school, decided to do something else. I did a bachelor in marketing and a master in business strategy. And when I was about to choose the subject of my master's thesis, it was announced that skateboarding would be in the Olympics. And when we had our first national championship in Canada in 2018, I went and I won. And so I started this journey of going to the Olympics, possibly in Tokyo 2020. So for 4 years, I had to qualify and be in the top 20 of the world because it was a demonstration sport, so they were only taking the top 20. And for 4 years, I was in the top 20. The pandemic hit. I was, I think, in 18th place when it did, and that was right before the Olympics. And then it was postponed a year, and when we came back to competition, we had one left, and I skated really bad. And so I was bumped out of the top 20 at that last competition a month and a half before Tokyo. So that was really hard. And then 4 days before the Olympics, I was home, sleeping, 5 a.m., and my coach calls me from Tokyo, and he says, someone tested positive for COVID, so you're now alternate for the games. And the competition was Monday, and that's Friday. So I'm like, I'm coming. So I took a plane to Tokyo. I got there Saturday night, and by the time I landed, somebody actually got hurt in practice, which was absolutely terrible. But at the same time, that opened the spot for me to skate in the Olympics. And so with less than 36-hour notice, I skated the Olympics. One thing I learned about this whole experience is that you always have to be ready for your dreams. I think if I wasn't ready in that moment, so many things could have gone differently. But I didn't give up until the very last minute. Since the Olympics, so many times I go to skate parks and I see parents telling me that their daughters started skateboarding because they saw me on TV, or they saw me in a documentary, or they saw me at the Olympics. And I think this, to me, I knew this, but now that it's very tangible, people feel like I made a difference doing this, I think that's the most positive thing for me. What I realized going into the Olympics is the power of sport is different depending on all the sports that exist, but they all have something in common, and it's you need to be resilient and passionate, and you need the whole community to be able to become a successful athlete as well. Something I wasn't really expecting is the mental aspect of being a professional athlete. I didn't think that it would be that hard because I thought I was strong and smart and I'll be fine. But then, especially when the pandemic hit, that's when I really started to feel a lot of pressure with skateboarding. And I even I remember January 6, 2021, I sat down with my parents and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's too hard. It was a lot of stress, and I just felt like I didn't even love skateboarding. And then I started seeing a sports therapist that kind of basically reframed the way I saw it. I was like, why am I doing this? And just thinking, like remembering why I started and why I'm doing this really helped. But it's definitely been one of the biggest challenge of my life. It took me about 6 months after the Olympics to come back to skateboarding. For a long time, the skateboarding industry was like very male dominated, very hard to get into. And not only the industry, but the culture and also like just the community in general. And I think it's evolving, it's being way more inclusive now. And one thing that I'm personally doing, it's to intentionally do work to make skateboarding more accessible to everybody through diversity, equity, and inclusion of like all skateboarders. Like if you're on an Indigenous reserve in Canada, there's no skate park, you know? So if you want to make skateboarding more accessible, maybe bring skateboarding to them. And for to us LGBTQ plus spaces, I think that's also been very successful, like just creating those spaces, those safe spaces where people can have a good first experience at skateboarding. One piece of advice that I would give my younger self is that it's hard to be what you can't see, but it's not impossible. What I mean by that is it's possible to create your own path in skateboarding or in life in general, whatever you want to be. If it doesn't exist, it's still possible for you to do that and be that. Something I wish I knew when I was younger is that skateboarding would be an Olympic sport, because that would have changed the way that I approached skateboarding as a kid. I think it would have changed my perspective and like the way I kind of trained. To me, grit means almost this like resilience that people will just like keep doing and keep doing. I think as a skateboarder, for example, like you'll fall down a set of stairs 1,000 times and do it one time. And the fact that you did it once, you see it as a success. If that makes sense? So like that like resilience and like non-stop trying to get to where you want to be. Being authentic, I think, is one of the most important piece of being an athlete or just a person in general. Like nobody else can be you. And so that's what you have to bring to the world. My favorite candy is Mexican candy because it's spicy. My favorite hobby outside of skateboarding is taking road trips. One of my favorite trips was driving from Montreal to Cancun and back. My favorite genre of music is reggaeton, and I even skate to reggaeton, which is kind of uncommon, but it's good. My favorite movie is the Disney movie Soul. My favorite thing about Montreal is seeing Montreal through the 4 seasons.